Welcome to this webinar, and many thanks for taking the time to attend the training on the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. My name is Joe Tadaro, Advisor Education Analyst, and joining me is Neve O'Brien, who is managing the change.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here with you this afternoon and to talk to you about the Trustee Advice Fee Policy and give you a sort of a whistle-stop tour across all of our super and pension products in that regards. Thank you, Joe.
Great, thanks, Neve. We're going to give you a quick step through the key changes across platforms, and then we'll go through some commonly asked questions about the policy at the end. If you want to know a little more of a deep dive of the changes to the products on the North platform or the products in the Master Trust Super Fund, then perhaps also listen to the recordings which you can find on the Trustee Advice Fee Policy page on Portal. The reason for the training is to help you be prepared for the Trustee Advice Fee Policy when it goes live. This learning is separated into a number of different learning modules. An introduction to all our super and pension products and the policy dates, then a walkthrough of the changes of our 3 product platforms. We'll then share some of the commonly asked questions and answers. Then finally, we'll remind you of what support is available. We'll leave time at the end for you to ask any new or follow-on questions based on what you've heard. To submit a question at any point, select the chat icon on the left-hand side menu and type it in. Any new questions will be answered within 24 to 48 hours, and we'll email you all directly with those questions and a copy of this training pack. Our learning objectives today are understanding what's changing for each of AMP's super and pension funds, learn the answers to commonly asked questions, and understand where you can find support. So I'll hand you over to Neve to talk through an introduction.
Thank you, Joe. So these are the super and pension products that are impacted or will be impacted by the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. First, we have the list of products there that are in our Master Trust Super Fund, so you can see those listed there. Secondly, we have the products that sit on our North Online platform. You can see those listed here. And finally, we have our Portfolio Care and WealthView Super and Pension products, which is run for us by an external administrator. So we talk a lot and say a lot to you that our policy is at a client level by platform. And what we mean by that is by each of these streams or the columns that you see here. So the policy applies by client across all of their super fund products that are listed here under Master Trust, and or it applies to a client on North Online and any of their products that super and pension products that sit here in this column, and likewise sitting here with Portfolio Care or WealthView. So each of these columns stands independently under the policy. So these are the dates from when the Trustee Advice Fee Policy will go live for each of our columns that we looked at there, our platforms and our fund groups. So you can see here on the 13th of December this year, for both Portfolio Care and WealthView, the consent process and the fee caps will be applicable to all new advice fee arrangements. So anything new set up from 13th of December will follow the consent process and have the fee caps applied. From 1st of January for Portfolio Care and WealthView, the advice fee caps will be applied to existing advice fee arrangements. That's advice fee arrangements that were set up prior to the 13th of December. So the caps will come into play for those as of 1st of January 2021. The policy in its entirety becomes effective for our Master Trust Super Fund on the 1st of January 21 also. And then you will have seen, I think, or if you haven't, you will see shortly the update around North Online products. So our implementation date for the policy on North Online has moved from the 12th of December to the 23rd of January. So we expect the North Online products to be live with the Trustee Advice Fee Policy from 23rd of January 2021. And just letting you know that date is subject to board approval. Okay, so let me take you through some of the changes for Portfolio Care and WealthView. So from 13th of December 20, the consent process will apply for Portfolio Care and WealthView super and pension products. So that means that client consent, evidence of written members' consent, is required prior to any deduction of advice fees from a member's account. It also means that a member can withdraw consent at any time with effect, and their advice fee deductions will cease. And it means that client consent is required for new advice fee arrangements. So any arrangement that's currently in place and continues to run does not require consent unless it's terminated or changed in some way. All new advice fee arrangements will be for a maximum of 12 months only. And existing advice fee arrangements will continue until 31st of December 21 from a date perspective. So if they're currently undated, they will continue until the 31st of December 21, unless otherwise specified by legislation, or again, unless that you amend that date or you terminate them to set up a new fee arrangement with your client. So all of these are in the expected legislation, and so they apply consistently across all of those product platforms that we spoke about earlier. And this change will apply for the Portfolio Care and WealthView products from the 13th of December this year. So let me show you now the advice fee caps that are applicable to Portfolio Care and WealthView. And as I said, these caps will be applicable for new arrangements from 13th of December. So any new arrangement set up will have the caps applied from that date. And then from 1st of January 21, the caps will come into effect for all existing arrangements. So any arrangements that were set up prior to 13th of December this year. The first is a one-off advice fee cap. So the one-off advice fee cap will be a fixed dollar cap, and it's over a rolling 5-year period, and it's based on the client balance, and it's 5,500 including GST. Now, there's a little bit of variation here to our other products. And other products, we have a second threshold, a higher threshold cap also. However, in the case of Portfolio Care and WealthView, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible, aligned to the current products. And this is the single threshold that will apply for one-off advice fee caps on these two products. So that will be 5,500, including GST, as a one-off advice fee cap for Portfolio Care and WealthView. And then there's an ongoing advice fee cap, which is the same for all of our products. So this is a cap of 2.2% per annum, including GST, based on the client balance, and that will be deducted from the client account monthly. And then in terms of minimum balances, the trustee will monitor small balance erosion on Portfolio Care and WealthView through reporting. So a little bit of a variation again to our other products where we have a 10,000 balance minimum. Just due to our system capability on these products, what we will be doing is doing a reporting solution. So the trustee will be reviewing the balance erosion and small balance transactions for these two products through a reporting solution. You can apply for an advice fee exception for Portfolio Care and WealthView fee arrangements, and that's in a similar way as for all other products. You can apply for existing arrangements. So if you have an existing arrangement that you know is in excess of the caps that are coming, you can submit an advice fee exception request in terms of that. And that can be done up until the 8th of January 2021. That's to make sure that any exceptions that are approved are processed before we run the fee run for January. You can get an application form by calling the customer relations numbers that are listed here. So like with our other products, there are a couple of steps you can take to be prepared for the cutover and for when Portfolio Care and WealthView go live on 30th of December and on 1st of January with the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. The first step is reviewing your existing fee arrangements. So, form your own view and have an understanding if any of your clients' current fee arrangements fall outside the fee caps as we've talked about today, and if there's any actions you want to take as a result. And certainly speak to your BDM if you need any support with that. And then just be aware that there will be a new advice fee form. So any existing advice fee forms should be submitted by Tuesday, the 8th of December. And that's so that you can be sure that they'll be processed by or prior to the 13th of December when the policy goes live. Any advice fee requests that aren't finalized by that date will need to be resubmitted, and that'll be the new consent process and form from the 13th of December. Okay, that's our overview for portfolio care and wealth view. And Joe, I'm thinking now, before we move on to Northern, let's have a look at some of those questions that we've had. So there's a lot of questions that we get in, and there's quite a few that we get on a recurring basis. So we thought it would be helpful to share those with you today. Let's take a look.
So are investment products in the scope for the Trustee Advice Fee Policy?
The Trustee Advice Fee Policy relates to superannuation and pension products only, okay, and the fee deductions that are taken from those accounts. So no, it doesn't relate to investment products, and investment products are outside the scope of the Trustee Advice Fee Policy.
If my client has North and flexible super products, does the fee cap apply across both platforms?
So again, it's a no for this one. So the Trustee Advice Fee Policy caps apply by client, by platform, and we talked about that earlier when we looked at each of the columns. However, in all cases, even though it's by client, by platform, the member's best interest test must apply when charging advice fees to members.
Where there is a percentage of fund under management applied as the ongoing fee, and in 1 month the value of the fund falls and triggers a fee above 2.2%, will the trustee charge a maximum of 2.2% in that month?
So yes, the fee cap is applied monthly, and it is calculated as 2.2% of the members or the client's balance monthly. So if the value of the fund varies, it'll always be 2.2% of the value of that fund in that particular month.
How should an ad hoc fee be charged?
You should charge an ad hoc fee as a one-off fee. So you have options to either charge an ongoing fee on a monthly basis or use the one-off capability to charge ad hoc fees and or extraordinary one-off fees that you want to charge your client. Okay, so let's talk about North Online, and perhaps Joe, I can hand back to you to take everybody through the North Online changes.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for that, Neve. There are 4 key areas to call out here. First, there will be an updated advisor remuneration screen. Secondly, we're introducing a new advice fee screen, which is exciting, and I'll talk you through that in a moment's time. And then there's the consent process, where we'll show you how to upload the client consent as a part of the pre-submission process. Finally, I'll talk to you about the advice fee status and how to check the status of a submitted fee request. When updating the advisor remuneration screen for the existing advice fee arrangements, an end date can now be added against existing advice fee arrangements on the advisor remuneration screen. Undating existing advice fees will cease on the 31st of December 2021. Entering an advice fee end date is the only modification that can be now made to the advisor remuneration screen. For entering new advice fee arrangements, for all one-off and ongoing advice fee arrangements will be entered in the newly created advice fees menu option. A new ongoing advice fee can be set up by clicking the Add Agreement button. A new one-off advice fee can be set up by clicking the Add Fee button. The advisor remuneration screen will be removed for an account once the new agreement has commenced. So you'll no longer be able to see it, it will be grayed out. Once you hit the Add Agreement button against the ongoing advice fees, this section expands to show the fields relating to ongoing advice fees. you'll see that there is an start and end date that should be entered for ongoing advice fees, and also fees now entered will be on a per annum basis. So fee deductions will be monthly, but you'll need to enter that per annum fee here. Also, it's worth noting that ongoing fees going forward will be deducted at the start date of the agreement. So for example, if you set the fee start date to the 15th of the month, the first fee will be charged on the 14th of next month. Also, a new feature for ongoing advice fees is that whilst you can have one fee arrangement in place, you can now set up another by forward dating it. And that's up to 120 days. As long as the two dates don't overlap, you can have two agreements set up here at the same time. To do that, on the screen, you will click Next Agreement, and that would allow you to set up the next advice fee arrangement, which will start as soon as the one you've previously entered here concludes. You can also click Replace Current Agreement. If you want to stop the current agreement early and replace it with another one, and you can also select Terminate Current Agreement here, and that will cease your current agreement and no more fees will be deducted. This is the Advice Fees Pre-Submit screen, and this is where the client consent will be added. There are two client consent options, and this screen will guide you through what documentation is required to be uploaded in both cases. If you select paper-based signature here, then a copy of the client ID will be required to be uploaded the first time that you do this for the client. Once we have that client ID on file, it will no longer show up as a requirement on the screen, and there'll be a little X here to indicate it will no longer be required. If you choose the electronic signature option, then a digital certification will be requested to be uploaded. For all new advice fee arrangements, however, an advice fee alteration form must be downloaded and completed and signed with your client. This is the client's consent. Finally, the attestation tick box will need to be checked for you once you submit the advice fees. Once submitted, it will go to the North Service Centre for validation of the documentation received. And once approved by the North Service Centre, the advice fees will be active on the account. This screen relates to the advice fee menu only. So please note, for new business applications, the pre-submit documentation screen will look different. You will still need to print the application form, get it signed and uploaded with client ID. If you want to check on the status of submitted fees once you've uploaded your client documentation, you can go to the advice fees menu in inquiry mode or to the snapshot menu, and you'll see a red icon displayed beside the fees that are awaiting North Service Centre validation. When you hover over the icon, it will say with the North Service Centre for validation. Advice fees won't be deducted until the North Service Centre have validated the client consent documentation received. Once they've done this, the red icon will no longer be displayed. Also, the activities section has been updated for the new advice fee changes. There is a new activity called advice fee maintenance. Within that activity, you will see what the stage the activity is at. So for example, client communication has been verified for North Service Centre, activities being completed, or client authorization has been verified and activity is completed. And there's a list of a few others that we have there on your screen. Once fees are in place, you can also check how the fees are performing against the fee caps. In particular, tracking the one-off advice fee cap at the client level will be visible in the advice fee menu option. This table in the advice fee screen shows how much a one-off fee advice cap has been used and how much is available, so you can see that 26% has been used from the total cap of $5,000. Later in 2021, we'll also introduce this graph that will show the same information, but in this different format. Tracking against ongoing advice fee caps will be available through the advisor reporting in a new report, which will be introduced later in 2021. So now we've got another set of questions to run through. For clients who have been or will be transitioned to an annual advice agreement by the 31st of December 2020, are they required to be transitioned to the new policy consent requirements by the 31st of December 2021?
So yes, all current ongoing advice fee arrangements, and that's those that are in force when the Trustee Advice Fee Policy becomes effective, will automatically expire on 31st December 21. And that is a date that is called out in the expected legislation. So that date is subject to finalised legislation. If we assume that date stays the same within the stated legislation, it will be 31st December 2021 when all ongoing current advice fee arrangements will automatically expire.
Existing undated advice fee arrangements, are you referring to clients that have not yet on the AAA? Shouldn't all clients be on it this year?
So when we refer to undated advice fee arrangements, we're not particularly referring to a client's total annual advice fee arrangement. We're referring to ongoing advice fees that are specifically being charged to a super or pension account. So we're referring to those existing advice fees being charged to a super or pension account that are currently undated.
Do we need to provide client ID and complete a new advice fee form for annual advice agreements already in place?
So client ID and a completed new advice fee form will only need to be provided in the case of new advice fee arrangements that are set up from the Trustee Advice Fee Policy being effective. So any arrangement, advice fee arrangement that already exists, does not need client ID or a new advice fee form. Only if a current agreement is terminated or amended in some way would it then fall into the process where it would need a new form and ID to be carried out. So the client ID and advice fee form is referring to new advice fee agreements which are set up after the policy effective dates. Now let's have a look at the changes for the Master Trust platform. So there's three key areas that are changing for the Master Trust products. The first is that we've updated the advice fee application forms. Secondly, there is an amendment to the new business and pension refresh process in Easy Lodge. And then I'll talk you through a little bit the client ID process and including that client ID the first time you submit an advice fee request for them. We have created a single standardized change your advice fee form that will replace all the previous ones. So you can see those listed here. Also, the advice fee section in the new business applications form and pension refresh forms are updated in the same way. So this is the standardized change your advice fee form, and we have amended this to make sure that we are meeting all of ASIC's requirements. So some key things for you to note. There are fields to fill out for the date. So for an ongoing advice fee arrangement, you'll be asked to complete here a start and an end date. And there's also a data start date or a fee deduction date to complete for a one-off advice fee. We've also included some additional declarations both for members and for advisors, and this is just to give more information as per ASIC requirements on the type of advice services that will be provided and making sure that it's clear the consent is for advice services on this particular application or request that's being submitted. There's also a new field here for you to complete an advice fee cap exception number if you've had approval. And also a section here, a yes/no section for you to complete if you are looking for a fee to be deducted that it was within the cap at the total client level. And finally, we've added an additional item in the checklist here just to prompt you to think, have you already submitted a client ID in the past, or is it required? So here it is, it's blown out, that checklist item. So have you attached the proof of identity documents as set out in the information sheet? And we have it changing your advice fee information sheet that outlines all of the ID that is accepted. It is pretty standard, so there's nothing unusual on there, but that sheet is available if you want to check that. So due to the consent requirements, we are required to validate the client's signature against the consent the first time that you submit a fee arrangement for a client under the Trustee Advice Fee Policy. However, once you've done that once, you're not required to do it again. So further down the line, next year or 6 months in, and you're doing another arrangement with that same client and you're wondering, have I already submitted a client ID or do we have one on file? What you can do is go into Portal and check. So you search in Portal by the contract or the account number, as shown here. And then you'll be brought to the client ID page, and you click on the service request in there, as you can see here, and under the type you will see client ID. So if there's a client ID under that type, that means that we have a client ID already on file and you don't need to resubmit. Okay, so due to the fact that we have a new advice fee form, there is a change for the new business application, Flexible Super and Retirement, and that change has been embedded into the application screen. So you can see here under the advice fee for personal advice, we now have a link which will take you to a changing your advice fee form. And so what it does is it requires you to complete that form and then submit it to the Ask AMP at amp.com.au address. Just due to the change, also bear in mind that from 1st of January 2021, any advice fee details that are being submitted for a new business application, Flexible Super and Retirement, will be lost through the cutover. So just think about that. So 31st of December, this screen and the system gets changed into the 1st of January 21. So any advice fees in progress across that from 31st December 21 to 1st of January will be impacted. So please make sure that you have submitted any open saved advice fee details by close of business 31st of December 20. And that's to make sure that those flow through properly, and then you would start anew and that you will see this changed screen from the 1st of January 21. Similarly for the pension refresh screen, so you can see here there is a link, so a new link in the pension under the personalized fee structure in the pension refresh application process. So similarly, you would hit that link, you would print the form, you would get that completed with the new account number details and would submit that to AskAMP at amp.com.au. And similarly, the same cutover thinking to be applied here. So any open, saved and unsubmitted pension refresh applications with advice fee details will be removed as of 31st of December 20. So please make sure that you have submitted anything that's open and saved and unsubmitted as of close of play 31st of December 20. So as of 1st of January, you're starting afresh. So Joe, shall we look at another set of questions before we wrap up?
That sounds good. What client identification will be acceptable to confirm the client's signature?
So any of the documents that are listed here are accepted. I won't necessarily read those all out. So they are all acceptable. I have highlighted two. So that's the driver license and the passport. I would say they're preferred. So they're not the only. I said all 6 that are listed here will be accepted, but it's always easier and it's preferred if it's a driver's license or passport. Just bear in mind, if it is a pension card or a health card, these are secondary type of information will be required. So just think about that. So we'll need to validate given those two pieces do not include a date of birth details for the client.
Why is there a super balance minimum of $50,000 to submit an exception request?
So the purpose of the trustee advice fee policy is to help protect members' accounts from account erosion through advice fees. And the regulator has reminded all trustees to make sure they have processes and governance in place to ensure that. So consequently, to provide a reasonable level of comfort that low balance accounts are being adequately protected from erosion, the trustees determined that an ongoing advice fee of 2.2% per annum on balances of up to 50,000 is appropriate. So that's why the exception kicks in at balances 50,000 and above.
Where an advisor has a couple as a client and the ongoing advice fees are split between the two people with different accounts, can an exception be requested for the couple at a client level rather than at an account level?
So the legislation considers a member's interest in a super fund, so not a couple's joint position. So I appreciate that couples do present as a single sort of party, but really it's each individual is considered separate in terms of their interest in the fund. So as a result, the fee caps and the minimum account balance threshold apply to each individual in a couple rather than to the couple as a single party. And consequently, also the exceptions application is only in relation to the fee arrangement on one of the each individual's accounts. Okay, so now let's have a look at where you can find support. So we have a lot of information on Portal. So, invites to the training webinars and now recordings as we finalize them. There's readiness guidance for the platforms. There's FAQs. There's as much information as we can think of. We are putting on there for you. So please do have a look at our page on Portal, and you'll find a Portal Products Trustee Advice Fee Policy, and then there'll be Trustee Advice Fee webinars or whatever item you're looking for. So make sure you check under there all the information that is available. The advice fee exception process and the forms, so really the forms in which the process is outlined, can be found in multiple places. So for the Master Trust products, you'll find it under Portal Forms and Tools Servicing and Maintenance. You will find the advice fee cap exception form for North Online in North Online under products and forms. And then for portfolio care and wealth view, you should call your customer relations number. So we've got the wealth view and the portfolio care number there, so you can get your form by calling into that number. If you have any questions, and I know you're doing this already, please keep emailing and contacting us. So at afp@amp.com.au, or speak to your BDM, which I know you're all already doing also. So please reach out for individual support if you need that. And then we have also provided the link here for the ASIC guidance on the expected legislation, so you can see that here. Now, of course, that link won't work today, but it will when you get this pack. Thank you, and I will hand you back to Joe.
Thanks, Neve. We've got lots of questions coming through. So what we're going to be doing is leaving this webinar open for a few minutes more to allow you to ask questions if you haven't done that already. So I'm going to keep this open. So from me, it's goodbye from me. Thank you so much for your attendance.
Thank you, Joe, and it's goodbye from me, Neve. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really grateful to be able to support you, so keep reaching out to us if you need any help. And if we don't speak, have a fantastic Christmas. Thank you.